Today I have with me Carol Campbell, the Director of Elementary Education for the North American Division, and she's here to answer some questions for us about standards. We've heard the term, we hear it a lot at meetings and at Nashville, but we don't really know what they are and what they mean for us in our classrooms. So we're hoping that she can give us some information on that. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here.
We have just 5 questions we want to go through, but the first thing we want to know is why standards?
A very basic and important question. Really 2 reasons. One being that standards identify what students need to know and be able to do in any certain content or discipline area. And then secondly, it really sets the tone or creates a framework for what we do in terms of curriculum instruction and assessment. Let's look at one standard as a sample, and this is pulled from our elementary mathematics standards folder. And the code in front of each standard, I just want to emphasize the significance of it. It first identifies the grade level, and then it identifies the domain within mathematics, and then the standard number. And every standard, as you note from this sample, begins with a verb. And that's very significant because the verb really identifies the curriculum resources that would be advantageous to use, as well as the instructional activities and the assessment pieces that you might use with any particular standard. So yes, standards are very significant in terms of planning, in terms of curriculum instruction and assessment, and they identify what students need to know and be able to do.
Thank you. But that makes me wonder, is Adventist education standards-based?
It is, and we've begun to revise our standards. And I want to just go over a little bit of history of standards, not only in the Adventist system, but the public sphere as well, because I think that's important for understanding their significance. Back in the 1980s, the subject matter organizations such as International Reading Association, National Council for Mathematics, etc., began to develop standards that were soon adopted by the states. And there was a lot of variety in terms of how those standards were interpreted, and so consequently in recent years the Common Core standards have been developed by a couple of organizations to provide a little bit more clarity and focus for standards. And in terms of what the Adventist system has done, if you've been with the system for a while, you know we had curriculum frameworks to start, then we had curriculum guides, and then we had an abbreviated form of those called curriculum or key learnings. And now we've transitioned to these folders which capture the essence in a little bit more user-friendly format for teachers. And so we've begun with math, we now have language arts completed, and we're working our way through the curriculum. So yes, Adventist education is standards-based.
Thank you. Just because not all of us are familiar with them, can you explain to me how the standards are organized?
Certainly, and you really have to see the folder up close to appreciate the organization. So I would encourage you to go to our website and download the math standards to get a really close-up look. But there are really 4 principal organizational framework or breakdowns in terms of the organization of the standards. And the first are what we call strands. Now in mathematics there's really just one strand. English language arts has 4. So math is the strand. And then within that strand there are domains, and there are 5 domains within math. And then within the domains there are content topics, which would be the first column as you look at these grade band standards in the folder. And then within each topic, there is a breakdown of standards to the right of each. And so that's sort of an overall look at the framework or organization of our standards folders. Also, we've included essential questions and big ideas for each domain because we would like to model the significance of those pieces as well, and some suggested assessment pieces that go with each domain.
A lot of resources then right there
Yes,
in that
it
little
is.
document.
Exactly.
What are the major shifts in the revised NAD elementary mathematics standards?
Good question, and a good reason for revising our standards, because the subject matter organizations have sort of paved the way for us in terms of looking at math in a little bit different light. And so really there are 3 shifts. One is focus. We're looking at going in more depth at grade levels with specific content, and teaching it deeply at a grade level versus over the course of several grade levels. So that's one shift. A second shift is coherence, really aligning the content across the grade levels and within a grade level so that students see connections between the content across domains. And then the third shift is rigor. We're not only wanting to emphasize skills and facts, etc., but we want to also develop the conceptual understanding for each domain.
So we want them to know how to do it and why they're doing it and be able to do it well.
And you're exactly right. In terms also of rigor, the Common Core state standards have identified 8 mathematical practices that really focus on rigor and can be translated across the different domains incorporated. And so we emphasize that as well, going deeper with these mathematical practices.
And I have seen that you can find those listed there in the standards.
Exactly.
As
We
well.
do reference them in the standards. You're exactly right.
Now, as math teachers, we want our kids to be really solid in math, but as Adventist Christian teachers, we want our kids ultimately to know Jesus through everything. So can you tell me how the NAD elementary mathematics standards reflect the Adventist worldview?
Yes, we've tried to model that in the essential questions and big ideas that sort of form the umbrella for these 5 domains within mathematics. And we have provided the Adventist worldview context in the essential questions and the big idea so that teachers as well as learners can see how the learning within this particular domain really reflects the creative power of God, even in mathematics.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for clearing up some questions that we had, and we look forward to talking to you more in the future.
All right, very good. Thank you.